Okay, so get this. You sent in like a whole stack of articles about cryptids.
Oh, wow.
Right. Bigfoot, Nessie, you name it. Which tells me one thing.
What's that?
You are ready to explore some creatures that haven't quite made it into our textbooks yet.
Yeah, and what I think is so interesting about cryptids is they're not just about like, oh, maybe there's undiscovered animals out there.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
You know, scientists discover new species all the time, right?
Yeah.
But cryptids, they grab our attention because they're often like totally steeped in folklore and local legends.
Yeah.
It's like this weird blend of myth and reality.
You've included a bunch of articles about Appalachian cryptids?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. This region is practically like a breeding ground for these stories.
It's true.
Like when you have those misty mountains, the isolation. Wouldn't you expect something strange to be lurking out there?
Oh, absolutely. And that totally ties into a pattern we see throughout history, right?
What's that?
Humans placing monsters in the unknown.
Okay.
Unexplored territories, dark forests, the depths of the ocean.
Ooh.
These become like blank canvases for our anxieties and what-ifs.
I like that, blank canvases for our fears.
Right.
So it's about the unknown, kind of meeting the unexplored.
Exactly.
And it's no coincidence that so many cryptids are tied to specific places.
Right.
Often with a strong sense of wilderness mystery.
Totally.
Places where for many, anything feels possible.
Exactly. And think about how these stories spread.
Okay, huh?
Often through word of mouth, local newspapers, or even like sensationalized accounts.
Oh, for sure.
So the mystery is amplified.
Mm-hmm. Okay, before we get too deep into that, I got to bring up the skunk ape.
Oh, yeah.
Just the name itself makes me laugh.
Right.
It's bad enough to have like a Bigfoot-like creature roaming around.
Yeah.
But one with questionable hygiene?
Right.
Talk about a creature of discomfort.
And yet, even with the humor, you got to notice the details in these reports. What do you mean? The skunk ape isn't new to the scene.
Right.
This article mentions sightings dating back to the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
Stealing food, causing a ruckus.
Really?
Sounds familiar.
Like our old pal Bigfoot.
Exactly.
It's like a greatest hits compilation of cryptid behavior.
Yeah.
But speaking of familiar, let's talk categories.
Okay.
Your articles cover all the classics. Aquatic cryptids. Always a crowd pleaser.
Right.
Who doesn't love a good lake monster? Then there are the hominids, those hairy, sometimes smelly relatives from parts unknown.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, we can't forget the reptilian crew lizards gone wild giant snakes.
Right.
Each category seems to tap into a different kind of primal fear.
Absolutely.
The vastness and mystery of the ocean, the unknown depths.
Yeah.
Hominids blurring the line between us and something else.
Right.
And reptilian creatures often carry that ancient, almost prehistoric connotation.
For sure.
It's like we're hardwired to be both fascinated and a little afraid of these creatures.
Totally.
And some places really lean into that.
Oh, yeah.
This article about the Loveland frogmen, who knew Ohio had such a sense of humor.
What do they do?
They made that thing their official mascot.
Which brings up a fascinating point, the cultural impact of cryptids, even without concrete proof.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The Loveland frog, for instance, a bizarre humanoid frog-like creature becomes a mascot.
Wow.
This speaks volumes about how we embrace these stories, how they become part of a community's identity.
It's almost like a badge of honor.
Right.
A way to say, we've got weirdness here and we own it.
Exactly. And it's not just mascots.
What else?
Take the Mothman.
Oh, yeah.
You've included an article about its connection to impending disasters, which of course is a classic folklore trope.
Classic.
But then it spawned an entire festival.
Wow.
People flock to Point Pleasant, West Virginia every year to celebrate a creature that may or may not exist.
It's that wanting to believe factor, isn't it?
It is.
But to play devil's advocate here,
Okay.
are any of these cryptids the real deal? Have we ever gone from myth to, whoa, it's actually true?
Actually, yes. And this is where it gets interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
Take the Komodo dragon, for instance.
Okay.
Until the early 1900s, it was just a sailor's tale.
What do you mean?
A giant lizard in Indonesia. Sounded like someone had one too many grogs.
I can just imagine those sailors telling their stories in the tavern, and everyone's like, sure, mate, and I've got a mermaid in my bathtub.
Right. But then, boom, photographic evidence. Turns out those sailors weren't exaggerating after all.
Wow.
The Komodo dragon went from a mythical beast to a scientific marvel.
Okay, I love that. It's like something straight out of King Kong. It gives me hope for all the other cryptids out there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just giant lizards getting their moment in the spotlight, right? You've also got articles about creatures that were once considered cryptids, but are now just another Tuesday for the animal kingdom.
Precisely. And one that always comes to mind is the platypus.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine being an early scientist, right? Examining this creature.
Okay.
A duck-billed, beaver-tailed mammal that lays eggs. It's like nature just decided to play mix and match with animal parts.
Talk about a curveball. I bet those scientists were questioning like everything they thought they knew.
Absolutely.
So it's not just giant lizards or egg-laying mammals. You've also got the okapi in the mix.
Right.
The African unicorn, as one article calls it.
Yes, the okapi is a fantastic example of how different cultures perceive these strange creatures.
What do you mean?
What might be labeled a cryptid in one part of the world could be a totally revered and sacred creature in another.
That's a good point.
It's all about perspective.
Okay, so we've got these incredible examples of creatures that went from myth to scientific fact.
Right.
Does this lend any credibility to cryptozoology? That whole study of cryptids, I mean, we've got articles here that kind of tiptoe around the topic.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It feels like it.
And it's a topic that sparks a lot of debate, even among, like, hardcore cryptid enthusiasts.
I bet.
Here's the thing. While the enthusiasm is admirable,
Sure.
cryptozoology, as it currently stands, lacks the rigorous standards of, like, established scientific fields.
So you're saying it needs more hard evidence and less, my uncle's best friend saw Bigfoot fishing once.
Exactly.
Oh.
Cryptozoology often relies on anecdotal evidence, eyewitness accounts, blurry photos.
Right.
Which, don't get me wrong, can be compelling starting points for an investigation.
Sure.
But they're not enough to hold up in the scientific community.
Which thrives on
verifiable data, repeatable experiments, and a healthy dose of skepticism.
So while we might all love those campfire stories and those like late night encounters,
Right.
science needs something a little more concrete.
A little more solid.
But there are organizations dedicated to this, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like try and bring some structure to the search for these creatures.
Yeah, and that's important to acknowledge.
Okay.
They often employ tools like motion sensor cameras, night vision equipment, even audio recorders.
Wow.
There are attempts to be more systematic,
Okay.
which is a positive step.
For sure.
However, and this is crucial, there's no formal academic backing.
What do you mean?
You can't major in monster hunting 101,
Oh, man.
at least not yet.
Though if that course existed, I have a feeling it would be the most popular class on campus.
Right. Standing room only.
But jokes aside, if cryptozoology isn't a hard science, why do we still care so much about these creatures?
Right.
Why do these stories continue to fascinate us?
That's the heart of it, isn't it?
I think so.
It's about more than just proving whether Bigfoot exists or not.
Okay.
It's about what these cryptids represent, the feelings they evoke in us.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
They embody the unknown, the untamed, the parts of the world, and perhaps even ourselves that we haven't fully explored.
So in a way, cryptids hold up a mirror to our own psyche.
Exactly.
They kind of give shape to our fears and fascinations.
They do.
We talked earlier about how the different cryptid categories, like aquatic creatures or reptilian creatures,
Right.
they tap into different primal anxieties.
For sure.
Each one seems to touch a different nerve.
Absolutely. And one article you shared delves into some really insightful psychological theories about this.
Oh, really? Okay.
Cryptids almost offer us a way to cope with our fear of the natural world,
Okay.
a way to rebel against the mundane, the perfectly explainable.
So they give us permission to embrace the weird.
In a way,
So when we say we like want to believe in Bigfoot,
it's almost like we're saying we want a world where the extraordinary is still possible.
a world where the map isn't completely filled in, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how many of these cryptids are associated with specific regions,
That's true.
often rural or isolated areas.
Places where people feel like a strong connection
Right.
to the land, to tradition.
So those stories pass down through generations. It
Exactly.
becomes a part of the cultural fabric.
Like the Raven Mocker from Appalachian Folklore. Oh, yeah. This one steals hearts. Literally. Which is creepy,
Right.
but also kind of poetic when you think about it.
How so?
Preying on the dying to extend its own life.
Right.
It's almost like a metaphor, you know,
Right.
for how stories themselves get passed down.
Interesting.
keeping the spirit of the past alive.
That's a chillingly beautiful way to put it.
And it brings us back to like where we started.
Okay.
This whole deep dive wasn't about proving or disproving the existence of cryptids.
Right, it was about exploring.
It was about exploring why they capture our imaginations.
Yes.
And how a dash of healthy skepticism makes the journey even more interesting.
For sure. We've explored the folklore, the psychology, the cultural impact of these creatures.
We've seen how they reflect our hopes, fears, and our just like enduring fascination with the unknown.
That sense of wonder, of mystery.
And maybe, in a way, that's the point.
What do you mean?
If we knew for sure if Bigfoot was real, if there was a Bigfoot exhibit in every museum, would it hold the same allure?
That's a good question.
I don't think so.
Right.
Part of the fun is in the not knowing.
The possibility.
Exactly.
The what-ifs.
The mystery.
The search for cryptids, even if they remain unproven, reminds us of the vastness of the natural world and how much we still don't know.
That is very well said.
Thank you.
So to all of you listeners out there, we want to know.
That's that.
What cryptid would you most want to be real and why? Let us know on our website or find us on your favorite social media platform.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring the unknown and maybe keep a flashlight handy just in case